This is Joey, and I'm the pastor.
And this is Jared, the pastor's older brother.
And this is Ryan. I'm the pastor's redneck buddy.
This is the pastor with no answers. Want to welcome everyone. If you've been paying attention to the news just in the slightest way, you haven't missed all the craziness, all the very, very sensitive tweets that people are. We're just so concerned about this issue of transgenders in the restroom. We're concerned about people's feelings. We're concerned about assuming that we have everything figured out. We're even concerned that there could be things that people are going through that we have no understanding of, and concerned that we could potentially offend other people. Everybody's just on edge, on pins and needles, walking on eggshells, trying not to hurt other people's feelings, especially on social media. So I want to applaud all of us as Americans, especially Christian Americans. Good job being very sensitive to other people and assuming that you just don't understand. Maybe you don't have the full picture. Jared, what do you think about this whole deal here? Are you passionate one way or another?
Honestly, no.
You're passionate from a standpoint of it throws you into some sort of a tizzy where you're not sure which restroom that you're supposed to be using.
Ha 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 ha.
No, seriously.
I know exactly which restroom I need to go.
Oh, snap!
Do you know what?
Oh,
it's kind of weird. So this is what I did.
Yo, with your bazooka.
What is that? What's that old like rocket launcher they use in the Red Dawn movies?
RPG.
That's it.
All right. So with Jared's RPG, there's no confusion.
Anyway, because I'm an old man.
Have you ever peed in the urinal by standing opposite of it to where you can just sling that thing over your shoulder and just...
That's the only way I can do it.
Jared is confined to using trough urinals.
Otherwise, Jared has to stand with his back against the opposite wall and pee.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michelle.
Anyway.
I'm not easily offended. No worries.
That's good to hear. Okay. So I'm an old man. I'm out of touch. So I talked to two people today, two youths. I talked to a 16-year-old boy. I was tutoring him. And then I spoke to a almost 14-year-old girl about this to get their opinions.
Yeah.
And the 16-year-old boy said, look, you go to the bathroom based on the equipment you have.
Right.
Right? And I thought that was interesting. And then the girl I talked to said, you should go to the bathroom according to the gender you identify with.
Uh-huh.
That kind of blew my mind.
Two different perspectives, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I guess me being the out-of-touch old man, I tend to gravitate to what the 16-year-old boy was saying, where you go to the bathroom according to the equipment, the physical equipment that you have.
Right.
And I have much more to say on this, but I'll wait till later.
Okay. Ryan, what do you think, man?
I think that everybody's got to pee and poop, and that's where we can all find some commonality. So let's let people pee and poop where they want to. Oh gosh. I mean, we could almost end the episode there. I mean, let's not. I was paraphrasing Paul's script, Paul's writings, but that's
gotcha.
the gist of it.
Gotcha. Was that a lost letter? All right, so let me get on my little soapbox here, and then for our listening audience, we have I wouldn't call it a surprise for you, but we're kind of going off the well-worn path of what we typically do on this show, and we've got three guests with us, and they're kind of told to be silent right now, and that, I don't know, that seems like I'm taking advantage of them and being a bully, but I don't mean it. It just, we just kind of want to introduce them to you one at a time. All right, so let me say what I'm totally against is okay, let me say this. I want to be strangers in a foreign land. All right, so let's say that I'm totally against people using restrooms that don't line up with their equipment. Let's say I'm totally against that. I still want to be a stranger in a foreign land. I don't want to try to make a bunch of different people foreigners like me. So obviously I'm using the verse, being strangers in a foreign land. I don't want my agenda to try to get everybody to see how I see things. So in other words, it seems like as Christians, we should be less excited about our rights I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, we're being persecuted," for example. But let's remember, there's Christians in other lands that don't even have any rights, and if they admit they're a Christian, they're going to die. So, if I was totally anti this, wouldn't the right response be to shut up about it, make sure my kids are safe, and love people, and get on with my life? I mean, if I didn't agree with this, shouldn't I be more concerned about people seeing the love of Jesus, even if that means that I need to sacrifice conveniences and comfort? So all of that is under the assumption of if I'm super anti this, it seems like we need to walk that out differently than how I see a lot of Christians walking this out. It's almost like there's this, not only do I disagree with this, but this is something I've got to slam my feet to the ground and just make sure that we don't let this one slide without having a big voice. And I'm just like, there's people that they're not even seeing the world through your Christian lenses, and they don't even understand how you can talk about this without the experience of having what they've gone through, or talk about this from a perspective that they don't also have. It just seems to be, to me, from a Christian perspective, I'm with Jared. I don't know if you said this exactly, but I'm totally fine with people being uneasy, people not liking this. I'm so fine with that. But please, let's communicate it in a humble way, and let's also put loving others over all of this stuff. All right. So that's my little thing. But let's bring Michelle Strange on. Michelle, you clean people's teeth, but I reckon you have some thoughts on this as well. Is this a cavity for our nation?
Nice one.
God, it's so. I'm actually excited to be on someone else's podcast.
Yeah, tell us about yours real quick. What's it called? Where do people go?
Plug it.
Well, I mean, you might have some dental people, but it's a dental hygienist podcast. So, I mean, if that interests you and you get excited like I do about dentistry, it's a tale of two hygienists. But
well, while we have you on here, if someone had to resort to only flossing or only brushing their teeth, what do you recommend?
Oh, see, that's a whole other discussion, because I will say I don't think every person should floss.
Wow.
What?
That's mind-blowing.
However,
that's a paradigm shift.
Stop. Hold on. Not everyone should floss, but they should clean between their teeth.
Now, that's just I thought that's what flossing was.
So it is.
Everybody go check out A Tale of Two Hygienists to find out what the hell is going on right now.
If that just rocked your world, contact me about that. I don't want to hear your comments about what I'm about to say. You can talk to me about flossing. No. So apparently I'm guessing that you invited me on because I made a stand on Facebook about this, which it's kind of, I find it funny because I've
been on sabbatical and I haven't been on Facebook much. I respect you.
Oh, well, that's good, because apparently I made a fuss.
Well, let's hear it. Let's hear it. What'd you make a fuss about?
Well, I should say first and foremost that I get a little annoyed with people. I always go for the underdog.
Right.
So if I see someone that is being, I don't know, bullied or discriminated against, it might not have anything to do with me. I kind of go, I have no children, but I feel like this would probably be what Mama Bear feels like when you get very protective. I just don't like when people feel upset or discriminated against or feel like they're not getting their needs met. It really upsets me personally. So when I see that happening in communities like the transgender community or the gay and lesbian community or the elderly community or whatever it is, I feel like I have to go fight this battle for them. It is actually a fault of mine that I know that I have, because I take on other people's roles when I really don't even, or other people's debates when I really just should shut up. But this law that they are talking about passing, or North Carolina is passing, where you would have to identify with your parts and pieces that you were born with.
Right.
I also think it directly affects me because I often go into a man's bathroom, and that this will now make me stand in line with all the other girls when there's a perfectly good bathroom that just happens to have a man on its door, and that it makes me angry. I want to go where I want to go because I
Right.
don't want to stand in line with the other girls.
Right.
They take too long anyway.
Right.
So, and I say that just to add a little levity to the
Yeah.
situation, but in reality, I think that this issue that everyone so the issue that I heard on Facebook was if you allow a man to go into the women's bathroom, you are opening up females to be raped, molested, sodomized, whatever.
Right.
Sexually offended, like there would be sexual offenders in there. And my debate is transgender does not equal deviant.
Right.
And if I were to walk out of a stall, because women pee in stalls, like I'm not shown parts and pieces of the opposite sex when I go into a bathroom. I don't know who is in that stall next to me. I don't think if I walked out to wash my hands next to a man or a woman, a man going through that transgender, process,
Right.
I don't think I would be unnerved by that.
Right.
And I feel like some people are unnerved, and by being uneasy, it creates a fear, which then creates this irrational response, at least what I feel is an irrational response, that they're now going to be harmed.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that is an equation for being harmed,
Right.
for me personally.
So you don't see a significant safety issue here?
No.
Right.
My personal opinion is if there is somebody that's going to do harm to me or a child or anyone, they're going to do it regardless of what's on that door.
Right.
There's no law that said, I mean, there could be laws, they're going to break them. That just comes down to it. And
Here's my
I think-
pushback, though, because we're not saying that the transgenders are going to ogle or
Right.
be perverse. We're saying the guys who aren't transgender, it gives them an easy entrance into that situation, and that could cause what's the words I'm looking for when you're exposing yourself. It makes it,
Vulnerability.
yeah, it makes it easier to do that kind of thing if you're saying that you could have different genders or different sexes coming in and out of those kinds of bathrooms. That would be my concern. Not saying the transgenders are the deviants. I'm saying the heterosexuals are the deviants who are going to try to pull those stunts.
Yeah.
Hey, I
And-
thought everyone was muted, so I could have jumped in, but I've been holding my say. So should I keep?
Yeah. No, I'm
Hanging
gonna.
on.
I'm actually.
I'm a
gonna-
host, though.
Yeah.
I'm a host.
Sorry, Jared.
Carrie just tried to make you his bitch, man. Carrie, why don't you come in on this right now? Where are you at with all this?
Well, I guess I'll go. Well, there's a number of things I can say. I've been writing them down. Michelle, I hope you're for Second Amendment rights, because what you said about laws not preventing deviance plays well with the Second Amendment community. Anyways, I was just going to say pretty much what Jared was saying. It's not so much about a transgender person. It's just when you have a blanket statement that men are allowed and women are allowed and men no matter what. I have 4 kids, right? I am pretty confident that when I send my 10-year-old daughter to the bathroom,
Yeah.
she's not going to have to contend with seeing or being around any males where there would be an opportunity for something. So I have a very different perspective on that than Michelle for that reason, I think.
And I guess I would say to that, so at the end of the day, my argument is not that we all are going to see different points of this. Instead of having these conversations about Second Amendment rights and all, like who goes where, could we not have a conversation about how we could make people feel included and safe at the same time? Like, why are we having conversations like this where, like, what's right, what's wrong, what should be appropriate, and how are children being affected? Could we have conversations like, how can we create unisex bathrooms? How could we...
We have unisex bathrooms. You don't have to say that women have to be able to go in men's, men have to go in women's. There's plenty of places that have unisex bathrooms.
Oh, and that's great. Like, that would be, I think that is a very middle ground for for this situation. Because I think too, if you take transgender, you take that community out of this problem. If we even had this conversation where how can we fix something that is obviously becoming an issue, because there's so many other people that men that need to go into or women's restrooms, and maybe it's with your 10-year-old daughter, maybe it is a husband who is needing to help his wife get onto a toilet because she just had hip replacement surgery, or maybe it is a caregiver of an adult that has like a handicap of some sort. Like there's many other issues where I can see opposite sex is needing to go into a restroom or a bathroom area.
Yeah, and I feel like most people are okay with those special scenarios, but when you get into this, newfangled, I don't know what I am, even though I was born with a specific set of parts. Today I'm male, tomorrow I'm female. I want to be able to do whatever I want. It just creates a lot of unease because it's against the natural order, and people don't like that. If you're going to have a men's room and a women's room, if it's a single stall, a single toilet, no one really cares who goes in what bathroom. But when you have multiple stalls and you could have kids coming in and out or different kinds of vulnerable people, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to, especially at a national level.
I would say even above and beyond just the natural order of things, this is a radical new idea. So I think it's unrealistic just to say that people are going to blindly accept this.
No, I'm with you there.
We have generations and generations of people that are older than us who would just say this is, like you said, unnatural. So I think we have to have a healthy perspective on their outlook as well.
Which
this is a tough thing to stomach.
The response to that, Jared, though, that you're going to get is, yeah, exactly. That we used to have colored restrooms. You know what I'm saying? That's what my grandparents grew up with, and that's what they were used to, and they were uneasy. But I'm with you. That's not to debunk your argument, but that is a similar response that people they put race and sexuality in the same category, and I do think there are some parallels there. I don't think it's a perfectly accurate parallel, but there are some. All right, so real quick, Michelle, you're into underdogs. You're going to be into Seth Studley then, because I call him the underdog. He has conquered the world, and he has had everything against him. He's short, he's Indian, and he stutters.
Oh, wow. What kind of intro is that?
I didn't know I was that much of an underdog. Wow. Then I'm kicking ass. If I'm that much of an underdog, I'm really killing it. Then I guess
you are, man. You married up. You got.
Oh man.
Wow.
Married up, as in my wife's taller than me.
Seth, what do you think about all this, man?
Well, first of all, what's up, fellas? Good to see you again, or
Seth.
talk to you again. I think.
Hey, real quick, let me tell you a funny story about Seth. I gotta tell you this. All right, so we're doing a Bad Christian live recording, and it has kind of turned into somewhat of a family atmosphere. There's some alcohol there, but King's Kaleidoscope is playing, and they're more of a worship esque type of band, and a father brought his daughters and everything, and so we're recording a live podcast, and we have Seth on there. He's a good buddy of ours, so we have him as the guest. And it was around the time when the Washington Redskins were going through all of the craziness that they were going through with their mascot, and we asked Seth if he thought that Washington Redskins was an appropriate mascot name. He immediately said, "Hell no."
Whoa.
You could hear the intro. But he later apologized, so that's all good.
Yeah, I apologize, and then I said something rude to another guy too. But it's just kind of, sometimes you get heated. Usually you can apologize for things. I think my take is, and I'm not on Facebook or anything, and I rarely listen to news and stuff, so I don't know a lot of the arguments for or against this issue that we're talking about. But I really like the parallels that you were talking about between segregated bathrooms, and I would say there's different parallels. Not because, well, the parallels are, in my opinion, it's like people being discriminated against out of some sort of irrational fear that something's going to happen. Like back in the 50s and, whenever segregation was going on, it's like, African American black people, they were considered less than or dirty, or what are they going to do to our kids? And it's like, I guarantee that all of us on this call have probably been in the bathroom with multiple transgendered people. You just don't know it. Your kids have been there. You just don't know it. So I think this is like, and usually it's the conservative Christians just, kind of promulgating this just, I don't know, kind of fear mongering. And I have 3 kids.
Yeah.
I have 3 kids. Well, they're 8, 7, and a little daughter that's 4, right? And they've probably been in the same bathroom as a transgendered person who just needed to go pee, right? So I would say that this happens way more than any of us realize. It's just coming to light because, marginalized people are thankfully having more of a voice these days. And who's making a big deal out of it? Usually it's the conservative folks, right? Of course, the people who are marginalized are making a big deal out of it, but that's because they want equality, So I'm frankly not worried about it whatsoever. Like, just take the gay marriage, issue. We were all talking about it. Well, most people were talking about it, 4 years ago, right? Now it's legal in all 50 states, right? Are people dying? Is marriage like just dissolved and all the heterosexual Christian couples getting divorced? No, of course not.
Have you seen the economy, Seth? Have you seen the economy?
Oh yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like, I don't. I think it's human nature to have a real resistance to something that you think is terrible or whatever and this is going to change the world and it's going to be a big paradigm shift and I don't like it because it's different. And then, change, I think, for everybody, once we get used to it, it's fine. And nobody's talking about gay marriage like they were 2-3 years ago, It's like everybody was freaking out just like they're doing now, And I think it's cyclical, but each kind of like society culture change usually, for the most part, gets us as a whole to a better place, Yeah.
Well,
You guys not agree?
My question to this is, would you guys have any problem with just doing away with the whole idea of men's rooms and women's rooms?
I don't know. Like, my wife and I were in Europe last year, right? And I remember I was somewhere, I think in Spain, and I was just peeing at the stall, right? And the cleaning lady, or the custodian, who was a female, came in, mopping the floor around my feet, and I was just peeing the whole time. And that happened several times in Europe. And I was like, you know what? She doesn't care. I don't care. What's the big deal? Like, I think gender identity and sexuality is so, like, almost, I don't know. It's like, in a sense, backwards.
But there are people who do care. That's the thing. Like, I mean, sure, it may not be you, it may not be me, but there are people who care. It's a very private thing.
And it's more the laws than it is the action. The fact that you're being forced to accept something from the minority that the clear majority don't want, and the fact that you have New York fining people thousands of dollars for using the wrong gender pronoun, that I think is the biggest problem. Is that this gets backed by a national law or even a state law. And it forces people to do something that they shouldn't have to do, right? You need to separate what you feel about it morally or what you feel about it emotionally and what is being forced by law. And I think that's the biggest disconnect.
Yeah. So is it more of an issue of like the government telling me what to do and we don't like that? Or is it more of an issue of like, you know what? I don't care. Pee where you want to pee. It doesn't matter. It sounds like you're saying it's more of a kind of a big brother type thing, like I'm being forced to accept this.
Yes, and because we have a natural right now, we have a natural social order. There's no law saying that men have to go in men and women have to go in women, right? Everyone just does it, and we rely on other women in there. She's for the most part safer than she would be if men could come in at any point in time, right? But then when you have a law saying that you don't have that natural barrier anymore, you have to allow people to go in at the slightest breeze of saying, "Oh, today I'm a female. I'm going to go in the women's room." Right? And you have to accept that. Otherwise, you're going to be slapped with a lawsuit, and you're going to lose your job and have to pay $15,000-$20,000 in repercussions just because you harm someone's feelings.
That sounds like a worst case scenario, and okay, kind of like I was saying, about gay marriage. A lot of conservative Christians were like, "Oh gosh, things are going to go to hell in a handbasket, and this is going to be terrible, and all this," just like doomsday kind of stuff. Well, guess what? It's a law now. Is like have all like heterosexual Christian marriages absolved? No, there's bigger issues. The guys are looking at porn. They're in a terrible marriage and stuff like that. That's.
But I think the difference though is with gay marriage, it's basically you and your spouse. But when you have transgender issues with bathrooms, then it affects everyone. And I think that's probably the big difference there.
Can I pipe in
for
1 second?
Pipe in.
I just want to speak up about the whole Big Brother issue because I think that's a completely bullshit argument. I'm sorry, Jared. I'm making you work overtime on the editing.
I don't have to edit that word out.
Yeah, we don't edit shit.
Just the F word I have to edit out.
Can I say "gosh dang it"?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can say that, but that you're getting dangerously close.
Brace yourselves.
Okay.
All right. Because the thing is that the same people that raise their voices and say we're not going to let the government tell us who can go, that we've got to let people go in the bathroom with us, are the same people that were supporting DOMA several years ago, and the same people that scream from the mountaintops that Christians need to stand up and fight for their rights, and that we need to pass laws that institute Christian ethics on the greater American public. And you've gotta at least acknowledge the fact that there's a little bit of a two-facedness to it, in that we want to pass laws that are Christian ethic friendly, but we hate it when the liberals get the stage and they want to pass a law that forces everyone to be more in line with their values.
Well, I tend to see that Christians may want to pass laws in response to laws that they see unjust. And the problem is too many laws, right? So you get a law that says a Christian bakery has to make a cake for a gay couple. Yeah. And then they feel the need to, in response, find some way to protect themselves against that bad law by passing another law. And it's a feedback cycle.
And I do agree with you on that point. I'm a big fan. I've got a little bit of libertarian leanings in that any new laws that weren't necessary to prevent one person from causing great harm to another seem silly to me.
Do you have a picture of Ron Paul in your wallet?
I got a picture of Ted Demas. Nobody else will get that. But
so going back to the I don't know which one of you guys said it, but you were saying, there's no laws of a guy can't go into a female bathroom, and the kind of social order figured itself out, right? So what's to say that the social order of transgender people going into either bathrooms wouldn't just kind of right itself anyway, and I think a lot of times Christians get all just, it's panic mode. We have to defend our faith. This is a thing. We're being persecuted. Just like Joey said in the beginning, it's like, no, we're not being persecuted at all. Your faith is not in jeopardy. If your faith is like that fragile that, a transgender person coming into the bathroom, and you got obviously larger problems going on. But so what is the argument that it wouldn't just right itself anyway?
For me, though, to me, it's my Christianity doesn't really come into my mindset here. To me, the two issues are, number one, safety. Not for the transgender, but for the creepy, perverted heterosexuals that could abuse that. And number two, I think there needs to be sensitivity on both ends. And so that's my perspective. It really doesn't have much to do with my Christianity. I
agree with the sensitivity. Let me ask you this. Why wouldn't the sexually perverted ones take advantage of the system just a year ago? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you have the sexually perverted dude that's just like, I'm going to do something stupid, I'm going to hide in a female stall right now.
because there's a fear now that if you just report a man in a woman's bathroom at this point, you're committing a hate crime.
Okay. No,
I think that's definitely part of it. Yeah.
But I think that there's also, if there's a man loitering in a bathroom, if there's a man that is obviously looking into stalls or just hanging out in there, has done more than entered a stall, done their business, washed their hands, hopefully, and left, then I feel like then you bring up that there's something going on in this bathroom.
There's already laws for that.
So, like, if you're a female and you're minding your business and you just came out of the stall and you're washing your hand, there's a guy sitting on the counter saying, "Hey, girl, you look," like, automatically, you know, there's a problem here.
Like every transgender would, we know.
Exactly.
Hey, girl.
Hey, girl, hey.
Well, and you have to understand, there's not always going to be a troop of people in a bathroom keeping an eye out either.
Yeah.
You know, I have seen plenty of news reports and plenty. I mean, I'm sure I've seen 5 or more, just in passing, where people are assaulted in bathrooms because it's a big bathroom. It just so happens it was only the 2 of them in there, or it was just one person in there and someone walked in. Now, granted, a law wouldn't prevent that, but it makes it a lot easier for that to happen when you can no longer throw a flag down because you see a man walk in a woman's restroom.
Yeah, I just, you know, I'm with my brother when it comes to there needs to be a sensitivity level both ways. Like, if there's people uncomfortable with it, it doesn't make them haters. But I don't think that I'm convinced that we're less safe now. I'm not there yet. Maybe we are less safe, but I'm not there yet.
What would you like, Carrie?
And the lack of safety, I agree also with my brother, has nothing to do with the transgenders. It has to do with perverts taking advantage of the
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the unfortunate thing about this whole debate.
Exactly.
Is that this issue should be 100% about safety, and we should have parents and sex abuse victims and that kind of thing standing up, shouting about the dangers that these laws might bring into the equation.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we've got idiot Christians that are using this as an excuse to spread hatred, and I'm certainly not grouping you in with that, Carrie. Folks, that not everyone that is adverse to these laws falls into that camp, but unfortunately, there's a loud group of people that are ruining y'all's argument.
I agree.
And
I actually agree with that.
For instance, there was I saw a news article, and if you Google
real quick, did you hear Carrie say, "I actually agree with Ryan"?
Hey, you'll account for that one on the day of judgment, Carrie.
George Bush just agreed with Obama.
But there was this actually just came up 2 days ago in Horry County School District, which is Myrtle Beach, which is about 2 hours north of where we live in Charleston. And the thing is that all the idiot Christians are ruining the debate for everybody because they start the meeting out with a bunch of rednecks just going, "Jesus loves me."
Yes.
Like that has anything to do with this debate whatsoever.
That's awesome.
And it's embarrassing to me as a Christian. But anyway, the thing is that I don't want to belittle the fear that anybody, especially somebody that's been a victim of sexual abuse, has for the open door that this is going to create. That's a very real fear. But at the same time, I would also like the opposition, the folks that are opposed to me, I would like for them to also acknowledge the real fear that's also well documented of when a cross-dressing, and I'm going to use this as a more obvious example, but a cross-dressing, a man who has assumed the identity of a female and is clearly a man but is transitioning into being a female, goes into a male bathroom in a bar, and there's drunk dudes in there. Do you not think that there's safety issues involved there as well? I mean, there's clearly documented issues of them being abused, of them at least being assaulted verbally. And so you get into a situation where you're trying to weigh out which one is more of a dire, risk, and which one is more statistically common risk.
Yeah, but you don't pass a law. I mean, just like someone said earlier, that we have other laws to cover that. They can go report assault and things like that, personal. Why turn it into a law where people now have to worry about being fined or being
Don't you think that
have lawsuits brought against them?
I mean, don't you think that the reason that it's coming up right now has more to do with the schools because of the Title IX? Because, where schools are prohibited from gender discrimination, there's a clear constitutional precedence at this point that schools that receive federal funding are not allowed to discriminate based on gender. And
That's not discrimination.
Well,
I guess
but
I'd have to argue with that.
So far, the courts seem to be saying that it is discrimination. And so if we trust the American legal system, certainly we have. I actually do. That's the one part of America that I'm not embarrassed of.
O.J. Simpson is totally innocent.
But that was actually the most sincere thing I've ever said. I actually do trust our appellate courts and our Supreme Court. Oh, shame. Anyway, but they seem to think that it is a form of discrimination, and that's why I guess this is becoming. That's why you're seeing people want to institute laws. Is as a, I guess what you were saying earlier, Carrie, is as a kind of a rebuttal to those sort of
yeah. Well, here's what decisions. I see. I'll speak to that, and I'll speak to something Seth said earlier. He said, gay marriage didn't do anything for the country. No, I think why we're seeing this now is because they're pushing the line further. They got the gay marriage agenda passed, and they're taking this on further. Now they're trying to get polyamory, right? Polygamy. Trying to use the gay marriage law and say, well, hey, if you pass that, then you have to accept this. And now we've got the whole gender identity thing. And I think it's a snowball effect. So I do think...
But I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Just to throw into where this kind of started, but from my understanding, it was something that was passed in Virginia from a child that wanted to, identified one way or the other. And then from that, this North Carolina law stemmed, and that said, no, you can't go into this bathroom. So the law started with them saying no, versus a law that would allow these people to go in there. So it's not
both sides are very guilty. So you've got the Virginia decision, which was I think the first Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, which governs most of the southeastern states, and they ruled on behalf of that child, saying that it was gender discrimination by not letting them use and forgive me, I don't remember whether it was a bathroom or locker room. And then you had City of Charlotte pass a similar law to, I think it's like 20-some states that are of the population of Charlotte that are considered, giant megacities, and 18 of which have passed laws saying that you cannot prohibit somebody from going into a bathroom based on what you perceive as their gender. And then as a result of that, I want to say it was even like the next day or something, but it was insane when our politicians feel their Christian ethics getting threatened. It's insane how efficient they can get all of a sudden, because within 12 hours they drew up a bill and passed it, and they actually didn't even give anybody a chance to read the bill. One of the state legislators actually had to get up and say, "Can we please have 5-10 minutes to actually read this bill before we vote on it?" And they granted them exactly 5 minutes to read the bill before everybody had to call it to a vote. And it's this desperate legislation going in the other direction that it seems not deceitful, but it seems underhanded, the way that these laws are being passed in a really, really desperate fashion, as opposed to the other side, which is court cases that are being heard by folks that are trained to judge these kinds of things against the Constitution.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask.
Well, let me.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Joey.
Well, I have a question for you too, but go ahead. Talk to Ryan here.
Give me the business, Gary.
I was going to say.
That's Seth.
That's Seth. Sorry,
Seth.
Yeah, Seth. Sorry. I don't know which person said oh yeah, and then the snowball effect. That's kind of like in the mindset of Christians being scared. Oh no, oh goodness, in the 50s we desegregated people. Oh, now guess what? Now we're more accepting of male homosexuals being out in the 80s. Oh, now marriage gets passed. Oh, now what's going to happen? Transgender, all this stuff, like the snowball effect. It's like, oh, it's just getting worse and worse, right? But you have a whole contingent of people saying, yeah, thank the Lord, it is a snowball effect. People are being less stigmatized. People are being freer, less judged, less marginalized. It's a snowball effect, hopefully towards equality. And like I said before, if Christians feel so fragile, like we're being persecuted, it's just a snowball effect. Oh, well, what's next? The worst thing ever. It's like that's I don't know. In my opinion, that's very small thinking, and kind of like putting God in a box.
Well, it
I'll
sounds
just say
a very small box.
Oh,
Well,
God,
it-
everybody's jumping.
Yeah.
When I think of Jesus, I think of him. I think of Jesus saying, "Come, enter my kingdom. This is what I'm doing. Here's what I'm saying. I'm listening to my Father. So you come to my kingdom." It didn't sound like he was saying, "And oh yeah, the kingdom outside. Oh crap, you guys better back up. Y'all better, bring things back." He just said, "No, join me." So
Yeah.
I'm with Seth 100%. I think that Christians, what are we trying to protect?
It seems like, piggybacking off of that, you've got Jesus saying to give Caesar what is Caesar's. You know what I mean? Him basically saying, don't let your Christian ethics, turn the tide against what is going on in politics, because that's not our place. And then you've got other verses where he says, "And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it." And you've got that kind of language, and that, I guess, gets to a deeper sense of why people like me, and I can probably speak for Michelle, get so frustrated over this kind of stuff, because we feel like we're sitting back watching the Christian community get so, or the Christian conservative community get so worked up about this kind of thing, and we just think, why? We're fighting the wrong battle. We should be talking about other stuff.
How are we fighting the wrong battle? I don't understand that. When you have, Israel, when they went through the cycle of judges and they all did what was right in their own eyes, and it kept getting worse and worse, and God had to constantly bring someone to bring them back in line. And then you got in 1 Timothy 1, verse 10, talking about whoremongers and them that defile themselves with mankind and all these things,
but
being
they're talking
against
about within
all
their
God.
own communities. That's the thing, is if you had Christians calling out the sins of other Christians within their own communities, you'll never hear me bitching about that kind of thing. It's when Christians are trying to force their ethics on the greater culture that frankly may or may not care about God, and frankly are especially the way that we talk about it is certainly no good reflection on Christ.
Well,
and no
I partly
reflection on
agree
God.
with you and partly disagree.
Okay.
Can I explain both?
No.
I
Do it.
I just
man.
wanted
Do
to see
it.
if that would actually work. All right. Yeah, go ahead.
I disagree with the fact that we shouldn't be concerned about it, but I do agree with the fact that we have to understand that we are not living in a theocracy. I've had this debate. Probably shouldn't say that I was kicked out of an IFB group today because
What's an IFB group, by the way?
Independent Fundamental Baptist, which is
okay.
what I am, because I'm a Trump supporter, and they were claiming, well, if you're for anyone but Cruz, then you're sinning against God. I'm like, come on. Number one, I'm not voting for a pastor. This is not Old Testament Israel. We're not a theocracy. This is America, and the majority of people in America are not Christians. And I think you could argue that a large portion of the Christians are not truly Christians. So I understand. I'm with you there that this is not what I would Christian values. Were founded on Judeo-Christian ethics and morals, and I do think that we should always be concerned with the morality around us.
Carrie, stop right there and back up and say that again, because you went out.
Oh crap! Well, I can't.
Just like 5 seconds back.
Easy on the language.
America was founded on Judeo-Christian ethics, so we should still be concerned with the morality, because this is our country. It's what it was founded on, and we're seeing our country become something that it wasn't founded to be.
Wait a minute. I have to interject right there. Like the argument of like, oh, this country was founded on genocide, slavery, oppression, and just everything crazy. So that argument No, I have to interject there. That's old thinking, man.
But
I mean,
Mr.
that's just
Studley,
so-
you have
so
to.
old thinking.
This is not Carrie, by the way. But you have to acknowledge that even through all the ugliness, the Constitution was founded on this idea of freedom and a limited government, and the idea that justice should be for all. And so there are definitely some good things that we were founded on that I agree we need to be fighting for.
Yeah, but I think Seth's argument though is Carrie shouldn't use that as, hey, we shouldn't be doing this or we should be fighting because we were founded on it. Because here's the thing: is Carrie has Jesus in his heart. There's something that is guiding Carrie, that is speaking to Carrie. That wasn't what was happening at the beginning of our country's foundation. I just don't think so. Now, I think there were churches and people really serving God, and the Holy Spirit was guiding them and everything. But God,
the founding fathers weren't.
Well, I'm just saying.
No, I agree. I think they weren't. I think they were all Freemasons. So.
Right. So God was not guiding our country to kill the Indians, and God, like Seth said, God was not guiding our country to have slavery. So that's just a tough one. I think we would all be better off not saying that.
Here's my question to you, Joey.
Yeah, go ahead.
So what do we do?
And by the way, I love my country. I don't.
Right, I do too.
I think what a lot of people mistake is what I just said. Then they say, "Oh, you're not patriotic." No, screw you. I love USA.
So this is my
right. It's not about. Well, it's not about patriotism or whatever. You know, I mean, USA. It's like we're all insanely blessed to have been born here and live here, right? It's one of the freest countries in the world and one of the greatest countries in the world. But however,
dude, you got me
using the term is like I'm a Christian, and so are the forefathers of the things. Like, oh, come on, man, you got to be kidding me on that. If you're,
I didn't say they were Christians, though. I said that it was founded on Judeo-Christian ethics and morals.
All right, Jared, what were you gonna say? Jared?
Yeah, I mean, my thing. This is my question, and this is kind of a dilemma for me. So when you have someone like Carrie who's very sincere and passionate about his beliefs,
right?
Where do we draw the line? When is he allowed to speak up, and when is he not allowed to speak up? Because you have people on the other side who are very vocal about, yeah, transgenders should be able to use whatever bathroom you want. We're like hip hip hooray. But why does Carrie have to be silent on this issue?
He doesn't have to be silent. He just,
I think
in New York, I would have to be, right?
Sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
It seems like there are a lot of contexts where Carrie would be totally branded as a bigot, homophobe, whatever, and he's speaking from true, deep-seated convictions that are not founded on hate. And that's what troubles me. It seems like the moment you start saying I disagree with this, then you're one of those idiotic Christians that we're talking about here.
I haven't seen or heard anything that Carrie has said about this issue.
Joey, you just sent me a text message, man. All right.
So basing your question on what I've already heard from Carrie, I'm not troubled by that. I'm troubled by Christians, the bloggers, and the people that I have read and heard from, and it's just like, wait a second, this is not best for the advancement of the gospel. So, but I would say this, Jared, I think as Christians, it's our job to recognize when there is a high level of sensitivity about an issue and not just default to, well, it's the truth, so they just have to, suck it up. I think regardless, no matter what, we need to have a level of sensitivity and recognize that not everybody is talking from the same convictions. But I do agree with you.
On both sides.
What I don't like is when someone who is not hate-filled, like I believe Carrie is not, when Carrie says what he says and people say, oh, well, you're just a bigot. I cannot stand that. Well, it's to me, it's the same thing as, Christians that say, hey, if you don't accept Christ, you're going to burn in hell forever and ever and ever, and they're called hateful people. That just doesn't make any sense. If you believe that someone's going to burn in hell forever, you tell them.
Right. So while I naturally gravitate towards Carrie's position, I do love what you say about us being strangers in a strange land. That to me gives me peace. Like, I may not like everything that goes on around me, but I realize, look, I'm part of God's kingdom, and that kingdom will be eternal. I'm not part of an eternal kingdom right now here on earth. So that provides me with some kind of comfort.
You're welcome.
I have a question actually for everyone. If I can detour this and run a parallel,
Sure.
I think this plays into the immigrant crisis in Europe. So what is everyone's take on this subject when you look at what's happening with the immigrant crisis and how that's changing cultures in Europe?
Huh. So are you saying, or do we agree with countries, like Turkey and
being forced to
France?
change their culture because a minority group comes in and doesn't obey the rules and has their own morals, and that country's forced to accept under penalty of law a change in their foundations of their culture, the foundations of their ethics and their morals?
But I guess I would say to that, who are we blaming? Are we blaming the people that are coming in, or should we really be blaming the people that were a-holes to the people that were coming in? Because laws like that don't get passed because people come in with a different culture and immediately start going, you must recognize my culture. They get passed because people come in with their own culture and people are dickheads to them, and then you have to pass laws against those jerks saying you can't discriminate on somebody because of their culture, and then it's misinterpreted as...
To be fair, a lot of the Europeans are discriminating because I think Sweden has become like the rape capital of the world since the immigrant crisis. They've got reason to fear, but I still understand that the government shouldn't be involved. You got Angela Merkel, I believe, saying that everyone has to accept the immigrants. When you have the government stepping in and forcing it, it just takes the decisions out of the people's hands. I have a big problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can actually speak on that Swedish issue because my boss and second family are Swedish, and they are there pretty often. And I think it does go with what Ryan was saying, is that, yeah, most of these women in Sweden are being raped by people who are immigrating there that have a culture that just think women are dirt. Like they can be raped whenever they want because they are not important. They are not humanized in any way. But I think that the people, at least some people in Sweden, at least the people I know in Sweden, see that as these people were forced there for a reason. They're not there because they were like, oh, Sweden is, dark most times of the year and freezing cold. I think that's a great place to live. They were forced there because of something happening in their country. And
I would argue with them being forced, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, some cases they were. I mean, if they don't go, they could die. Their family could be killed, or they could be forced to be a part of something that they don't believe in. But even if they're there for a reason, and Sweden is taking them in because they want to have this open policy.
But then you've got a discrepancy between the people and those in authority. The people don't want them there, but those in authority and playing the PC game in the 21st century global economy are saying you must accept them.
Yeah, but do you not see that that's a vital function of government in general? I mean, if we take it back to the civil rights movement, do you think that we should have allowed South Carolina and Alabama and Mississippi to remain segregated in all ways because that's what the majority wants?
But it seems like the point
part of the function of government to provide leadership on certain issues.
Well, safety and protection. It seems like Harry's saying that because of their forcing these countries to allow immigrants in, it's actually wreaking havoc in terms of criminality. Like rape rates are jumping up.
But that's not a byproduct of the immigrants. That's a byproduct of the wars that's happening in their home countries itself.
No,
another episode. Another episode. Good parallel though, Carrie. Well, let me ask y'all this: did y'all know that the number of times that a doctor actually has to be called into a room where a kid has just been born to determine the gender? It's about 1 out of 1,750 births. So out of every 1,750 births, one of them, the doctor has to be called in. Hey,
do you think they made the right decision with you?
What is this? Yo, ask Priscilla. She'll say, yeah, baby. Yeah. She'd give you a
hey, Joey. You just asked your dad, right?
Yeah. Hey, I have.
Yeah, I know.
So when it comes to the whole argument of, hey, you are what your tools say. I mean, I know we're even going to get more obscure, but what about a hermaphrodite? I mean, that doesn't work for those guys that have two. So, just taking somewhat of a detour, but bringing us back to the topic at hand. I don't think it's accurate for us to say, well, whatever you have, that's the bathroom that you use, because that doesn't work in all cases.
Well, but that's a good exception that I think those people can come up with their identity on their own. And then, of course, you have is it a Christian or is it a non-Christian? A Christian's more likely to be a little more honest in their feelings. A non-Christian, probably not. But I don't think we should make vast laws based on a couple exceptions.
The non-Christians are the lying bastards. Carrie, I had to call you out on that one. So all of us Christians are honest.
No, I'm just saying if they're truly seeking after the Lord and truly trying to obey the Word of God, then they're probably going to be a little more honest and probably pray about it and determine. And this is a rare case, right? And right. my big and then a non-Christian is not going to have, I don't think, that deep abiding conviction to find out what's truth versus how they may feel in the moment. But overall, it's still an exception, and we shouldn't pass vast laws affecting hundreds of millions of people based on a very small segment of the population.
But we do that all the time. I mean,
this whole
country is based on majority rules, minority rights. The whole concept of our democracy is based on the fact that the majority is going to get their say, but we're also going to protect the minority from any abuses. And I think that's where we're going to differ on this, is because folks like me and Michelle, who for some reason have got a particular heart for the transgender community, for some reason that hits a nerve with us. We feel protective of those people in the same way that I hope our democracy feels protective of those people, that their feelings matter and that they're feeling intimidated and they're feeling threatened by going into the bathroom that is of a sex that they don't identify with, that makes them truly uncomfortable. And it also truly hits a nerve with them on something that is really, really important to them. And that it's and let me dial back for 1 second. I would ask that we drop the arguments of, oh, well, today I feel like a guy and tomorrow I feel like a girl. That's
yes.
the vast minority, and I think that is very dismissive of what's truly at the heart of this argument. And I don't think that that's necessarily what you meant earlier, Carrie, but I don't.
I meant it's a convenient excuse that can be protected by law.
I see what you're saying.
Certain laws pass. That's all I'm saying.
You're talking about the jerks that just want.
Yeah,
I'm talking about exploitation. Yeah, exploitation of the law.
Okay, I got you.
Okay, so here's my thought experiment. So why do I go to the men's restroom? It's because I feel like that makes me feel more comfortable. I feel better.
Urinals are easier to hit.
Just
Clearly.
All right, so that's why I go there. So you're arguing then that a transgender who's a guy but identifies with a female, he goes into the girls' restroom because he feels more comfortable there. What about the girls there who don't feel comfortable when they see a man walking in?
But why do they not feel comfortable?
It's their right to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, why does he not feel comfortable in the men's room? To me, it's
probably because he's going to be beat up over it. In some cases, if it is a man who identifies as a female, he is probably going through some process. They're going to have long hair, they're going to have makeup, they're going to be dressed like a female because they identify with that person. And they go into a man's restroom, there are the jerks, the assholes that are going to do really awful things, even if it's verbally or physical, to that person. And so I think it sometimes always comes back to the safety side of it. Like, a woman shouldn't feel unsafe in the bathroom, but neither should the transgender who could possibly be beat up.
Okay, but a transgender being beat up is probably about as likely as the heterosexual jerk that exploits the law. So if you guys want to take the position of that,
that's not true at all.
But here's the thing: is that the other thing is that it's not just as subjective as statistics. It's a much more deep-seated uncomfort level. For instance, if you guys get a chance, y'all, if y'all ever listen to Frontline or watch Frontline on PBS, they did a great a great show recently called Growing Up Transgender, and it's
I don't
talking about
Playboy.
it's talking about young children who are going through this process, and you don't realize it until you hear it from a first person perspective how sensitive this issue is. And they've got instances, where there's like 4 and 5-year-old children who clearly aren't making a calculated decision to be one way or the other. But
let me be the bad guy. I want everyone to hate me for the rest of this podcast. Those kids are doing that because I guarantee you their parents are pushing them one way or the other.
I
No.
strongly I encourage you to listen to that, Carrie.
I'm glad Carrie knew the door that he was opening. that wasn't a blind. People are going to hate me.
We still love you, Carrie. But I do sincerely encourage you to listen to that or to watch that, because I did feel, even though I'm kind of like Michelle, I tend to be sensitive towards these kind of issues. I did come out of that show with a
Why do you and Michelle get to be the sensitive ones? What about Seth? What about my friend Seth on here?
Hey, Seth.
Is he not sensitive?
We love you. I'm sorry. But anyway, the thing is that they would accidentally call, or a teacher would call a male that is assuming a female identity, even in a 3 or 4-year-old. They would call them by the wrong gender, and the kid would immediately start crying, and it hits a really deep-seated, sensitive, hurt spot. And I can kind of relate to that in other ways, like when you're making a transition, let's say, from being a kid to being an adult, and people treat you like a kid. Do y'all remember what it feels like to get like truly offended when you thought that you had finally reached that level of being an adult and someone questions that? Or, for instance, I remember feeling it a lot before I was married and I was just dating my now wife, and I didn't receive near the level of respect from my parents or whoever else because I hadn't actually gone through and married my wife. And we could argue that one way or the other, but the pain is still the same. I still remember feeling really sensitive about that. And my point is that most individuals are not walking around with that same kind of deep-seated, painful anxiety about, oh, God, I hope I don't accidentally walk into a bathroom with a transgender male.
I really think that there's no child that comes to that conclusion without some kind of external influence. It's either the parents, or the parents aren't teaching them the way they should, and they get external influences through peers or through school or through the TV. I just don't buy it.
I'm not going to argue that, because how you feel is up to you. But I think there's some fairly strong evidence to the contrary. But either way, for any of us who are not in that situation to make that determination would probably be fairly insensitive. And
let me ask. I'm assuming I'm confusing the two guys. I don't know if it's Carrie or the other guy. The one
Ryan's the nice one. Carrie's the jerk.
Okay.
I'm totally kidding.
Like respectfully, the one that I probably don't agree with as much. I'm hearing, but maybe we have different views. So I ask you a question. Like, I think that maybe you came to that conclusion, like, oh yeah, no one is transgender, because they decided it themselves or felt this. They had to have some kind of outside influence as a young person or whatever. Well, let me ask you, how did you come to be heterosexual? Was it because your mom told you? Or was it because a school teacher, encouraged you? You like girls. How did you come to that decision?
It wasn't a decision for me. It was natural.
It's reinforced by parents as it should be.
Well, as it should be. I think that's quite telling, in your opinion, as it should be, right? So it's kind of hard
in the opinion of the Bible, it's the podcast for Christians, I think, at least in part, so that I am going to take my perspective from there.
The Bible makes absolutely zero references to gender and transgender.
No, but it says the parents are to teach the children.
I agree. About morality and about God.
No, about everything.
About what
about everything.
All right, I'm sorry, I'm getting ugly. I'll shut up.
I'm just saying, it said that, no one had to tell me, I just am, right? Well, when you're coming from a Christian perspective and saying, oh, hey, gay person, you're not just who you are who you were told you are, or a person.
Is that how Christians talk to the homosexual, hey, gay person? Go ahead, Seth.
Well,
you're making good points. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, probably some do, and it's very subjective. It's not objective, right? So in my opinion, it's very closed off, and in effect, creates a larger chasm than that between Christians and non-Christians than there should be, right? So it's just, you almost kind of proved my point by saying when you said, yeah, I just am. Well, that's how millions of other people feel about being gay or being transgender. No one had to tell them that. They figured it out for themselves, So
But we
I
can't.
don't know. I would just encourage you to think about it in that way, and it may change your opinion slightly. It's not like, all those gays are terrible, all those transgenders are terrible.
I never said that.
The Bible. I know,
No,
but
you
it's
didn't say
typically
that.
the
I've been listening for it, and you didn't say it.
I don't think we can just casually.
I'm totally kidding.
Ryan's a whole monitor.
I don't think we just casually discount though what Carrie's saying about a natural order. I really don't. I mean, I think it's easy for us in this current contemporary climate, where everything's changing around us to say, oh, there's no natural order. But I'm not so easy to discount that, and I see where Carrie's coming from with this. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, and I would say that the same mindset of natural order, things usually work themselves out for the most part. Like I'll go back to DOMA or the passage of gay marriage and stuff. Things usually work themselves out, and I find in my own life, it's like being really kind of panic mode about things. Usually they work out and go, oh, that was me being not so wise or small-minded.
What does that mean, though? Things just work out. Like, I don't know what that means.
Well, like you were saying, the natural order, I think early on in the conversation, someone said, oh, yeah, the natural order of, men, go to the men's bathroom, women go to the women's bathroom. That's just maybe a societal norm, right, that just kind of was.
But could there really be an objective natural order, though? Or no?
Of course, I'll argue yes.
I would too.
Well, I would say that as far as a natural order is concerned, I'm fine with someone believing that as long as they also believe that someone can be born with like a different sexuality than what we as Christians would call appropriate or sinful or non-sinful. There are people that identify with a different sexuality, and so I would say that if you're a Christian and your assumption is that homosexuality is a sin, then they're born with it in the same way that someone is born with something else. And I'm not even going to use an example because any example I use would probably be offensive at this point. But I do believe that there's a chance that, hey, it's a sin and we're in a fallen world and someone is born that way.
I guess I would say that if we do all agree that there is some sort of objective natural order, do we find ourselves offended if that natural order is violated if we agreed that it was by God? Like, for instance, if we agree that God assigns every individual either X or Y chromosomes and that we each get a gender, then what do we make of the hermaphrodites? Do we say that that's against God's natural order and that's it's the hermaphrodites' fault? Or do we say that, hey, sometimes God has exceptions to that and we need to be extra sensitive to those exceptions?
Yeah, I would agree 100% with that. It's like, okay, this is maybe a transgender person or a hermaphrodite, well, certainly a hermaphrodite.
Well, there's a difference between
an anomaly.
There's a difference between hermaphrodite and transgender. Huge difference.
Yeah,
we would probably slightly disagree as far as I think what you're getting at is that a hermaphrodite was intended by God and a transgender
I wouldn't say intended, but what I'm saying is that they may have some general confusion based on physiology, but that's a big difference from a person who just decides they want to identify with something else. I'm going to identify as Donald Trump so I can go live in Trump Tower and have millions of dollars. That's what I want to
Carrie,
do.
Well, no.
Carrie, you have to understand.
I'm not trying to
that
patronize
argument
people, or maybe
comes
I am. I'm not
across-
sure.
That argument comes across super dismissive.
I know. It's late in the podcast. though. It's just
It's like the real world when people stop being nice and start getting real.
All right, well, I'm going to let everybody kind of have a closing comment if you would like. My closing comment would be the question as to whether or not this is beneficial for someone like me. I would say yes, and probably many fathers, this is advantageous because I believe that my daughters will be actually safer now because I actually have the ability to go into the restroom with them. And when they go behind the door, I can stand right outside the door. And as people come in, I'm just like, hey, my daughter's in there. I'm just waiting. Like, so I see this personally just for Joey Svensson, a big thumbs up because my daughter is 9 years old right now. I cannot, I never thought of going into the bathroom with her, but
let
now
me
I
speak
can.
on that before we do closing comments. I have an example.
This is your closing comment. No, go ahead.
Real quick, went to Disney World February. My oldest daughter had to pee super bad, really long line out the women's room. I took her to the men's room, and I was with her, and I walked her right to the stall as quickly as we could, shut the door, and walked her right out. We didn't wash our hands.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you can't just do that. What I'm saying is the natural order that I see sees that as okay. None of the women saw her come out like, oh my gosh, can't believe you took her in there. They all kind of nodded and understood.
Right.
But that's a big difference than I think the issue at hand. But it just played into what you were saying, Joey. That's all.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm basically just saying for me personally, I'm just like, sweet, I can make sure my daughters and my sons are safe.
As long as you identify before you walk in the door.
All right, Ryan, last words
I just want my last words to be
after Carrie.
that no. My last words are that there's a-holes on both sides of this issue, and I just urge all Christians everywhere to reflect Christ's love and not fall into that trap of using dismissive arguments and being freaked out by the transgender issue and letting that play into your rationale.
All right, Sid.
I think the closer we can get to appropriate equality and less marginalization of marginalized people, better. I think we all benefit. You know, when somebody wins in a good way, then most of us can win. And I wish that Christians didn't feel the need that they have to defend everything that goes against their traditional paradigm, because God is way bigger than that.
All right, Carrie.
I think I've said everything I wanted to say on this issue. I would just say that I believe that for any Christian, the Bible should be their standard for faith and practice. I do believe we should stand up to what we see in the world as much as we can, being citizens within our rights, while also recognizing that we are aliens on this earth. And I'll say that not all conservative Christians are Westboro Baptists. I don't even consider them Christians, and I hate the fact that they have Baptist in their name. And I will finish by saying, if you're going to read a Bible, that's great. Do it. If you're going to be a serious student of Scripture, Joey, read your King James Bible.
KJV, baby.
Hey, it's funny because people that are familiar with this podcast and people that come in and out as guests, like sometimes they'll be like, Carrie. I'm like, the KJV dude. Oh yeah, totally.
I think that's my name on like some of the comment threads.
KJV guy.
All right, Michelle.
I guess I would have to say, I feel like we did digress a little bit, because I feel like this argument can't be made with Scripture all the time and the Bible, that it is more of a civil right. And then I get the pushback of, safety, and especially when people start talking about their kids and their kids being safe. And I think it's something to consider, but I also think it is a fear because it's of the unknown and the different and slightly irrational at times. And I hope that instead of continuously having this debate that just cycles over and over and over again, that we stop and say, yes, you feel unsafe, you feel not included or left out or discriminated against. Let's spend our time better figuring out a solution, because there's a lot of smart people, and instead of them being used in that manner, they are debating something that's probably never going to help the other person see their point of view. So I just hope that we can come up with a better solution and start to see some change, because I think it's needed.
Rather than either side trying to win this argument once and for all.
All right, Jared.
Yeah, I just think that there needs to be sensitivity on both sides.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank all of somebody dying right now to say something else. Okay.
Oh, well, yeah, this is Seth, by the way. And I forgot to plug something. Can I plug something real quick?
Yes, you may.
Okay. Go to strongermarriages.com in September. We are kicking off a website podcast, and then also we have another website called abadmarriage.com, and where me and my wife chronicle what a bad marriage was and how through faith and hard work it's kicking ass now. So
yeah.
Hey, can we do political plugs? Well, each person?
No.
Can I do one plug right quick?
Trump.
All right, first of all of you pluggers, I am going to ask you to email me with any sort of links to podcasts and websites. Totally fine to bring it up here, but I am going to put it in writing as well. All right, so Carrie, we know that you're voting for Trump. Ryan, what do you want to plug?
I just want to talk about the Taco Bell Beefy Crunch
Holy
burrito that they just released. I had it earlier today, and it blew my mind.
Hey, thanks for listening to Pastor with No Answers. We just feel so loved that you would tune in and listen. Hey, if you get one thing out of this episode, please be careful of the murdering transgender people that are hiding in your bathroom stalls waiting to prey on your children. Please be careful. If you really want to be on the lookout for these individuals, you're going to have to check their genitalia. Okay, so if you see that they have opposing parts down there that do not line up with their gender, you know they're murderers. So please be careful of them, and go to pastorwithnoanswers.com. We sure would appreciate it. Have a good one.